Hello and welcome to today's live lesson. This is the third live lesson that I've done this month. So the other two were aimed at intermediate and advanced students, and today we're going to do one for elementary students. So if you're new to the channel, then my name's Alex. I'm an English teacher from Glasgow in Scotland in the UK. So thank you for joining. Please say hello in the chat once you get here so that I know who's here. Thank you for joining. So if you're new to the channel, like I said, my name's Alex. I'm a teacher. I've got my YouTube channel. Please follow me. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I've also got a Facebook group and a website, learnenglishwithalex.com. So I give 3 lessons per week just now. So 2 video lessons on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then a live lesson on Wednesdays as well. So please subscribe and follow me on social media and all that stuff so you know what's happening. So today we're going to look at some grammar and some elementary grammar. Now, this was designed for elementary students, but actually these are things that intermediate students and sometimes even higher than intermediate students make mistakes with as well. So it's worth staying, watching for all students, especially I would say intermediate students, pre-intermediate students as well as elementary, because they make mistakes with these things. So what we're looking at today is present simple versus present continuous. And I'll show you a little plan of what we're going to look at today. If you can see this, so it's present simple versus present continuous. We're going to look at a couple of example sentences, talk about the meaning of them. We're also going to look at some timelines of them so that we can see the meaning in that way. Talk about time expressions we use with each tense, the grammatical structures of each tense, and then I'm going to give you some practice sentences as well. So, today there'll be more talking from me than usual in the live lessons if you've come to these before, but I would like you to answer some questions as we go along as well. So, at different times in the lesson, I'll give you time to think. If you want, you can write the answer in the live box. Hi, Josefa. Good morning. How are you? And you can contribute. If you don't want to do that, then that's fine. You can just, spend that time thinking about the answer, and then I'll give you the answer to that one as well. Okay. So like I said, today, present simple and present continuous. We're going to start with just 2 example sentences so that we can identify these tenses and start talking about it. Okay, so I'm going to put the first 2 example sentences into chat box, and I'll show you on the screen as well on the iPad. Okay. Oh, that didn't show very well. It showed I'm good, Josefa. Thank you for asking. Thank you for joining. So I'm going to put the sentences up separately so that you can see them a little bit clearer. Because it's annoying the way when you copy 2 sentences, it puts them together in the live chat. But anyway, enough about that. Okay, so here we have our 2 sentences. I work from home every day, and I can't come for lunch because I'm working just now. So as you can see in these sentences, we have examples of both of the tenses that we're going to look at. So I work is the first one here, and in the second sentence, it's I'm working. Okay, so some basic examples of present simple and present continuous. The first one, we can see in both of these sentences, we have the time reference or the time expression as well, which is useful to talk about the meaning. So I work from home every day. This is present simple, obviously, and we're thinking about something which is repeated. It's every day, repeated action in general, all the time. We can also use it with sometimes, and we're going to talk about time references we can use it with as well. So, that's the meaning here: every day, sometimes, in general, repeated actions for that. And the second sentence, I can't come for lunch because I'm working. So we're focusing on that. I'm working just now. So present continuous there, and we're talking about now at the moment of speaking. So the time reference we have there is just now. Okay, sorry, just a second. My dog is coming, decided to join us. Okay, so I had the door closed, but he decided he wanted to come in anyway. And he thinks it's time to play, but it's not time to play. Okay, so in the second sentence we're talking about now. So that's kind of a basic difference between these tenses, is that the first one, present simple, we're talking about a repeated action, we're talking about routine or a habit, and present continuous, I'm working just now, we're talking about something happening at the moment of speaking, or round about the moment of speaking. So I'm going to show you a couple of diagrams just to get that clear in our heads before we go on and talk about this in a little bit more detail. So we see here, this is a nice diagram to demonstrate present simple. Okay, so here we can see that we have now in the middle, the present, but then we have repeated. So it goes from the past and into the future as well. So if we compare, this diagram to our, sorry if you hear growling in the background, it's the dog, Dylan. So we can see with the example sentence, I work from home every day. So it's every day this is happening. It's repeated like that. It's not actually, even though it's present simple, we're not talking about now, we're talking about every day, every Friday, every week, things like that. Okay. Okay, and if we compare that to the timeline or the diagram for present continuous, that looks like that. So we see in the middle we have now, and we have this continuous action from the past and going into the future as well. So we can see from this diagram that something is already in progress. It's happening now. So, we started it before now, and it will continue into the future just now because we're in the middle of it. Okay, so we're in the middle of doing something, and that's why it's just now, compared to present simple when we're talking about a repeated action, something like that. Okay, so another thing that's really useful to think about when we're talking about these tenses is time references. I spoke about this a little bit at the beginning, but the time references we use give us a good idea of what this tense means and how we use it as well. We don't always have to use time references or time expressions with these tenses, but it does help to give you, the idea of it, or the meaning of this tense. Okay, so I'm going to show you some time references for present simple, first of all. Okay, so let's have a look at these. So there we can see present simple, the type of time references that we use with present simple, and also which illustrate, which show the meaning here. We have usually, always, sometimes as well, all of those adverbs of frequency. On Wednesdays, every week, twice a week, once a week, and in general. So you'll see that all of these time references are about things that are routine, about things that are repeated. So it's not something that's happening now, it's on Wednesdays. So that means every Wednesday. It's twice a week, every week. It's once a week, it's usually, it's always. So that's the meaning of present simple and these time references that we use, or time expressions that we use with them. So if we look at present continuous, and also if we compare that with the time references with our first example sentence, oh, hi, no problem for being late. Still, thank you for joining. So if you look at our first example sentence, I work from home every day. That's the same thing. Every day is a time reference that we have for present simple there. Okay, and the time references for present continuous, I'll put up as well. And to compare the two. So here we have now, just now, at the moment, at present, today, this morning. So also we've got this morning, we could have this evening, this afternoon, things like that, because all of these time references are talking about now. And if we look at the example sentence, it was, I'm working just now. And that's the same time reference we have, time expression that we have in the examples there. So these time references really help to give us, that general meaning of each of these tenses. Present simple being it's that repeated action, and present continuous, it's in progress just now. Okay, and something that is worth remembering at this point is that there are some verbs which we don't normally use with continuous, okay? And that's because they describe states rather than actions. So it's not actions, it's more states. So I'll give you some examples. I study at the moment. No, Josefa, it would have to be I'm studying at the moment, because of the time expression that you have, and it would have to be at the moment as well. So it would be, I'll put it in the box, I'm studying at the moment. A good example though, because it uses that at the moment. And at the moment, it gives the idea that something is temporary. It's not, for example, you say, I work in a school. Yeah, but I'm working in a school just now. So maybe I'm not going to do it forever. So it's a little bit difference between the idea of something permanent, which is for always, and something that is happening just now or is temporary. So that's, going into a little bit more advanced meaning of this present simple and present continuous, but it's a very good question as well. So the verbs which we normally don't use in continuous are these ones which I put up here. Yeah, so these verbs aren't usually used in present continuous. So there are other ones as well, but I thought I'd give you some examples, like, prefer, want, know, mean, understand, believe, remember, forget. So you see all of these verbs, they're in the chat box as well. All of these verbs are talking about states. They're not talking about actions, something that you do. It's about a state of mind or a state of being as well. So we wouldn't use those in continuous normally. Yeah. So for example, somebody explains something to you and you say, I know what you mean, or I understand what you mean. You don't say, I'm knowing what you mean, or I'm understanding what you mean, even though we're talking about at that moment, because it's a state, and these are called stative verbs, so we don't use them in continuous. Normally, you will sometimes see examples of this, but if we're being strict, then these are incorrect. Okay, so that's kind of, the meaning of these tenses covered. So I want to talk about the grammar or the structure of these things. So, for present simple, we're going to focus on verbs which are not the verb to be. Okay, obviously that the structure then is a little bit different when we're looking at that. But to compare these tenses, we're going to use other verbs which are not to be, so it could be any other verb in that case as well. Okay, and then to be is different from making questions as well in present simple. So, and also that's beginner stuff. We're focusing on elementary, pre-intermediate, intermediate understanding of these tenses just now. So we're not going to talk about the verb to be, but other verbs. So I'm going to talk about the structure of present simple. I'm going to put a sentence up on the screen and in the chat box, which is a positive sentence, and I want you to try to think of what would be the negative sentence of this. Okay, so I want you to take this positive sentence and to make it negative. So I'll show you the sentence, which will help you to figure out what I actually mean. Okay, so simple sentence. Present simple sentence as well. So we're talking about structure, present simple. So a positive sentence is I live in Scotland. So what I want you to think about, and put the answer in the chat box if you want to, is how would you make this negative? Yeah, so I live in Scotland, which is true of me, of course. How would you make that negative? Okay, so we've got one answer already. Let's see if anybody else wants to give us another answer. Hello, somebody else has just joined. Please say hello in the chat if you would like to. And so we have the sentence, I live in Scotland, can you make it negative? Josefa has given us an answer. Let's compare to my answer. I'll put it in the chat box. Okay, so Josefa is correct, of course. So it's I don't live in Scotland. So all we have to do to make that one negative is use don't in present simple. Okay, so using the same sentence, I want you to change the person from I to you and to make a question. Okay, so I live in Scotland, positive sentence. I don't live in Scotland, negative sentence. So what would be the question? And don't asking a question with I is a little bit strange. So let's just change the person to you and tell me what you think the question would be. I live in Scotland, positive. I don't live in Scotland, negative. And what is the question? I'll give you a second to think about it. Oh, new person, thank you for contributing. And you're correct as well. Josefa has the answer as well. So yes, you're both right. The question would be, do you live in Scotland? So just like in the negative one, we need don't to help us make the negative sentence. In the question, in present simple, we need do with you to make the question, do you live in Scotland? Okay, so that was easy, yeah? Don't you live in Scotland? Okay, that's a negative question, Stella, which is also correct as well, but we need the question mark at the end. So that would be fine as well. But quite often negative questions are when we check some information. You say, don't you live in Scotland? It's like, I thought you live in Scotland, but now I'm not really sure, so you're kind of checking if this information is correct or not, but it's also correct. I was just looking for a positive question rather than a negative question, but thank you for doing that as well. Okay, so we had this sentence, I live in Scotland. And what I'd like you to do now is a positive sentence as well, but I would like you to change I to he. Okay, so we said, I live in Scotland. And if we change it to he, how would that impact the sentence? How would you change it with he? Okay, put it in the chat box or spend a minute thinking about it. So I live in Scotland, he. So you say he live, is it Dulce? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct, but thank you. He live in Scotland. Thank you for contributing as well. He live in Scotland. This is something that, even intermediate students make mistakes with. Excuse me. I'm talking a lot today, so Some water is good. Anybody else? He live in Scotland, Dulce says. So is this correct? I don't want negative just now, Josefa, just positive. Okay, I'm going to, so we've got two answers there, and unfortunately, they're both mistakes. Okay, so, but that's good. Mistakes are how we learn. Well, the correct sentence is yes, Stella, thank you. He lives in Scotland. A typo there I see with Scotland, but that's right. So he lives in Scotland. And remember, countries need to have capital letters as well. So, with what we call the third person, so it's he, yeah, S, exactly. So, Josefa. So with the third person, which means he, she, or it, in the positive sentences, there needs to be an S on the verb. So we say, I live in Scotland, you live in Scotland, we live in Scotland, they live in Scotland, but he lives, she lives, it lives. Okay, that doesn't make much sense, but the grammar is correct. So if it's he, she, or it has to be he lives in Scotland. Okay, so I'm sure you know what's coming next, but this sentence, he lives in Scotland, can you make that negative? Okay, so I want you to take that positive sentence, he lives in Scotland, which I put, and to make that negative. So how would you change that to a negative sentence? Remember, we had I live in Scotland, I don't live in Scotland, he lives in Scotland, and negative, what is the correct sentence for that? Okay, spend a second thinking about it. Put your answer in the live chat. Okay, I'm not sure anybody wants to try this one. Let's see, I'll give you another couple of seconds. And so we said, I live in Scotland, I don't live in Scotland, he lives in Scotland, and the negative version of that is, oh, 1 second. He doesn't live in Scotland. Okay, so we have that there. He doesn't live in Scotland. So if we, yes, they'll say thank you. So the second one of yours is correct. He doesn't. So if it's he, she, or it, to make it negative, we need doesn't. But you'll notice that the verb live doesn't have an S, because it's like we take the S from the verb and we move it to do, which makes does or doesn't. Yeah. So he lives in Scotland. He doesn't live, no S, in Scotland. Yeah. So he lives in Scotland. He doesn't live in Scotland. And don't we use for I, you, we, they. He doesn't live in Scotland. Yes, exactly. Okay, good. So again, we had before with the other examples, we had I live in Scotland, I don't live in Scotland, do you live in Scotland? Okay, so here we have already he lives in Scotland, he doesn't live in Scotland. What about the question for that? He lives in Scotland, he doesn't live in Scotland, and can you make that into a question? So when the person was you, it was, do you live in Scotland? So how do we change it for he or she or it? So if you can put the question form into the chat box, please. I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about it. They'll say for that. That's the structure for a negative sentence, not a question, and no S on live. Lives. So he doesn't live, no S, in Scotland. And that would be negative sentence, not a question. Yeah, so it would be like this. He doesn't live in Scotland. But to make a question, remember, so you said, I don't live in Scotland, and do you live in Scotland? Yes, good. Distilla. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right or if that's your first name, but it's what I've got. So the question for this one would be, as we have there, and Josefa, that's the same as with Dulce's one. So that's the structure for a negative sentence, not a question. So for the question, we need to bring does to the start. So we're inverting the structure to make the question, and it is, does he live in Scotland? Yeah. So I'll show you on the screen again. There we go. Is, does he live in Scotland? So we have structure here for all the different people. Does he live in Scotland, Josefa? Exactly. So it was for different people in present simple. Remember the meaning, because that's important as well. Sometimes we forget the meaning when we start looking at the structure and the grammar. But it was, I live in Scotland. I don't live in Scotland. Do you live in Scotland? He lives in Scotland. He doesn't live in Scotland. And does he live in Scotland? So that's a structure of present simple that we can use for the different people. Yeah. So the second lot for he, she, it for the third person. Okay. So we're now going to talk quickly, a bit quicker as well, to talk about the structure of present continuous, because there are not so many changes really as well. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about spelling of present continuous. And then I'm going to give you some sentences to complete, to practice, to see if this all makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to give you a present simple continuous, a positive one. And I would like you to make it negative. Okay, so just to talk about the structure of this sentence a little bit as well. So present continuous positive here, we have she's listening to music. So if we just look at the structure of that, we've got the person, she, pronoun, then we've got the verb to be. So she apostrophe S is she is listening, ing. So we've got the verb to be in the correct form for the person, and then we have the verb with ing. So she's listening to music. I'm listening to music. You are listening to music. You're, remember to contract with pronunciation as well. You're listening to music. So the verb to be has to change depending on the person, and then we have ing for the main verb, because here the verb to be is not the main verb, it's just helping us. It's an auxiliary verb, it's helping us to make the structure, it's helping us to make the grammar. Okay, so, and sometimes people forget that we need the verb to be in present continuous, but we need it. So for example, sometimes you hear sentences like she listening to music, but she's listening to music. We always need that verb to be in there. Okay, so we've got some answers here. Okay, so these are good answers, but not correct answers. It's good because we saw in present simple, to make it negative, we need don't, or we need doesn't. We don't need that in present continuous. Okay, we don't need anything like that. It's actually easier to make something negative than don't and doesn't in this case. So let's have a look at what the correct sentence is here. So positive sentence in present continuous, she's listening to music. Negative is she isn't listening to music. Okay, so all we had to do to make this negative is introduce not. She is listening to music. She is not listening to music. Obviously, we contract this as well, make it smaller as we do in English. So she's listening to music. She isn't listening to music. Okay? And the same throughout the different people, but you just have to change the verb to be for the correct person. So she isn't listening to music. I'm not listening to music. You aren't listening to music, etc. Yeah? So she isn't listening to music. Good. So we have our positive and negative sentences. She's listening to music. Negative, she isn't listening to music. And now, how can we take this sentence, she's listening to music, and turn it into a question? Okay, how can we make that a question? She's listening to music, positive. She isn't listening to music, negative. And what about the question? So remember, in the present simple question, we needed do and we needed does to make the question. But in present continuous, we don't need that. Just like in the negative one, we didn't need don't and doesn't. In the question for present continuous, we don't need this helping verb to make the question or the negative. What is the question? The question is, that's my question for you. What is the question? So she's listening to music, positive. She isn't listening to music, negative. Can you make that into a question? Okay, Josefa, you introduced the verb like there as well, which we don't need, and that changes it to more like present simple, but that's not right, okay? So it's quite easy to make the question. In this case, all we have to do is change the person and the verb to be. So we've got, she's listening to music. Okay, and they'll say again, that's a good try, but that's negative. It's not a question. So let's look at the positive sentence here. Okay, she's listening to music. So if we take the verb to be and we bring that to the front of the sentence, and that's all we have to do. Okay, so we invert the first thing. Is she listening to music? Stella, yes, very good. Okay, and there I have it as well. We can see here, is she listening to music? Yeah, so we're talking about now. So if we could, again, if you compare that to the positive sentence, she's listening to music. Yes, Josefa, perfect. And we change the order, is she listening to music? And that makes it put a question mark at the end. That makes it into a question. And that's all we have to do to make the question for present continuous. So actually the grammar of making these sentences is easier in present continuous than it is in present simple. And bear in mind, remember the meaning of these things. So is she listening to music? We're talking about right now. Okay, so she's listening to music right now. Is she listening to music at the moment? All of these things. Okay, compare that to she listens to music when she's driving home from work every day. Okay, or she listens to music every time she takes the bus. Okay, so that's the repeated action, the meaning like we were talking about to begin with our little diagrams, compared to is she listening to music just now, or she is listening to music just now for the positive one. Okay, good. So obviously in present continuous, we have the form of the verb, the ing form of the verb. We have the correct form of to be, followed by ing form of the verb. So let's talk about spelling for a minute before we go into the practice of the ing, because there are some rules that you need to remember. Here we have listening, which is easy. We just add ing on the end and we have the ing form. Okay, but I want to show you a couple of examples which are a little bit different. Okay, so spelling of ing forms. We have write, and the ing form of this is writing. So you'll see here in this case that we lose the E from the end in spelling and add ing. So the rule for this one is if we have a verb that finishes in E and we want to make the ing form for present continuous, we take away the E and we add ing. Yeah, so write becomes writing. If you look at the next one, we have run and the ing form running. And you'll see that we have a double N here, running, R-U-N-N-I-N-G. And that is because of the spelling of run and the letters that we use. So you see, run is a good example because there are only 3 letters, but also this is true if it's at the end of a sentence, and you have to look at the end of a word, sorry, not the end of a sentence. If you look at the last 3 letters at the end of a word, and it's consonant, vowel, consonant. So remember, vowels in English, A, E, I, O, U, and consonants, all of the other letters. So it's consonant, vowel, consonant, then this means we have to double the last consonant, which is why we have running. R-U-N, R is a consonant, U is a vowel, N is a consonant. And then the last one, we have some irregular ones as well. You know, in English, we like irregular things. So the example we have is lie, and this becomes lying. Okay? So it's not a rule surrounding that. It's just an exception. It's just something that's a little bit different, like we like to do in English. You know, you have rules and then you have lots of exceptions. So it's something to remember about the spelling of these things. Okay, so I've been talking a lot about these things today. You know, we've looked at present continuous and present simple and present continuous. We've talked about the meaning of these things. We've talked about the structure of these things. So now I'd like to give you some example sentences for you to complete, or for you to think about at least, and we will try to complete them in either present simple or in present continuous. Okay, so one thing I want to be, obviously we want it to be grammatically correct, but obviously I want to go back and think about, you know, the meaning of these things, about if it's a repeated action like that, or if we're talking about something at the moment, like those timelines there. Okay, so I'm going to give you a sentence up with a gap in it and the verb in brackets, and I want you to try to complete it. You have to think about, first of all, the meaning to help you decide if it's present simple or present continuous, and then think about the grammar and how you're going to complete this sentence. Okay, we've got 5 sentences in total, which all look at, you know, something a little bit different in that case. So I'm going to put the first one up, and I'll show you on the screen as well. One second. Okay, so somebody says, where is he? He, something, something, something. The verb we want to use is take and a shower. So, you know, the first thing to think about is, are we talking about now? Or are we talking about in general? Or are we talking about routine? So the question is, where is he? Where is he just now? So, you know, we need to think, if we're talking about just now, is it present simple? Is it present continuous? Which one would we use, and how would we make a present simple or present continuous sentence in this case? Okay, and in this one, I think we also have to think about the spelling of the verb as well. Okay, so where is he? Think about this. This is 2 people having this conversation. Where is he? Oh, he, a shower. So how would we make this into a correct sentence? Okay, we don't have any answers up, but that's fine. I'll give you another second and then I'll give you the correct answer and talk about it a little bit. Okay, so nobody wants to give it a go here, but that's fine. I'm going to put the correct sentence up for you. I'll show you on the screen as well. It's easier for people who are on mobile phones. Where is he? He's taking a shower. Where is he? He's taking a shower. So in this case, we need to use present continuous because we're talking about now. Where is he? He's taking a shower. So present continuous, the verb be plus ing. So we know the person is he, which means the correct form of be is, he's, and take, because it finishes in e, like the other example we had, right? We take away the e, we add ing. So where is he? He's taking a shower. So this sentence brings together a lot of the things that we've been talking about today. Where is he? He's taking a shower. And here you see, we don't have a time expression here. He's taking a shower just now. He's taking a shower at the moment. That's the meaning, but we don't have that time expression because from the context, it's clear. We're talking about now. Where is he? He's taking a shower. Yeah. Good. Let's look at the next one. Good. Still that? Yeah. Okay. Next sentence. I, space, and the verb is play, football with my friends every weekend. Okay, so if we compare this to the first sentence where we were talking about just now, where is he? He's taking a shower. Where is he just now? This one is not just now. We know this is every weekend. So we're not talking about now, we're talking about something which happens repeatedly every weekend. So that thinking about that will help you decide if it should be present simple or present continuous. Then we need to make the correct form with the verb that we have. Okay. Okay, Josefa, you went for present continuous. So I'm playing football at the moment. I'm playing football just now. Somebody calls you, you say, oh, I can't talk. I'm playing football. So we're talking about at the moment. But here in this sentence, we have every weekend. So that's not about now, but it's about a repeated action every weekend. So again, if we look back at the timelines help some people who like to visualize these things, but every weekend repeated, so that's present simple, but present continuous is now. So we're in the middle of it. Okay, so in this case, we need to have present simple, not present continuous. Okay. Played is the past, Dulce, so we don't need that. This is a simple sentence. It's present simple and it's simple as well because the correct sentence is just this. I play football with my friends every weekend. If we compare that to the first sentence we had, I live in Scotland. So it's the same. We just use the verb. We don't need to make any changes to it in the positive sentence. I live in Scotland. I play football with my friends every weekend. I work in a college. All of these things are correct for present simple. Okay, let's have a look at the third one. Like I said, we have 5 example sentences. Oh, that's a good sentence. It's a different meaning to what we're talking about So it'd be I used, so with a D on the end of use, and this means that you did it in the past, but you don't do it now. So it's a different meaning than present simple like we're going for here, but it's a good sentence. Okay, so in this one, I would like to make a negative sentence. That's why we say not speak. So we want to have negative, which is why I wrote not, and speak to his parents most evenings. So we're not talking about this evening, we're not talking about this morning, we're not talking about now, we're talking about most evenings. A repeated action. So think about how you would make that negative. First of all, think about, are you going to choose present simple or present continuous? Is this present simple is something which is repeated, or is this something which we're talking about now at the moment? And then we need to think about the grammar of how we're going to make this negative sentence with he as well. So this is, these are difficult sentences I'm giving you just now, but it's very good practice for you. Okay. Do we have any answers here? Let's have a look. I'm going to put up the answer and we can talk about it. Good, Josefa, perfect. A little spelling mistake in most, but the grammar choice and structure, very good. Well done. So the correct sentence is like that. He doesn't speak to his parents most evenings. You can see it in the chat box as well. So same as Josefa's one, we know that it's present simple, not present continuous, because it's repeated, it's most evenings. The person is he, so to make it negative, we need doesn't, and then we just need the verb after as well. So all of that's correct, yeah? Present, simple, continuous. We know it's negative, we know it's he or she or it's the third person, so it has to be doesn't, followed by the verb without s. Still, that one would be just now. Yeah, so he's not talking with his parents, he's not talking to his parents, but here most evenings. Yes, exactly. So it'd be most evenings in that case. He's not speaking to his parents just now. He's not speaking to his parents. He's speaking to his girlfriend. Somebody's on the phone just now. Say, oh no, he's not speaking to his parents. He's speaking to his girlfriend or speaking to his friend. In that case, we're talking about now. But because in this sentence we have most evenings, it makes it repeated. So it needs to be present simple, not continuous. Okay? Okay, let's have a look at another one. This is our fourth one from 5. Okay. She, this has to be a negative sentence as well. She not wear a red dress today. Okay, so it has to be a negative sentence. We know that. We have to think about, are we talking about now? Or, are we talking about usually, always? So if we're talking about now or at the moment, or one of these other time expressions for which mean at the moment, you would choose present continuous. If you think about repeated action, then it would be present simple. And we know the person is she as well. So that's going to help us decide how to make the structure here. So today, is today like now, or is today like always? If we think back to our time lines and our diagrams of how we can decide which tense to use. Okay. So let's see, does anybody have an answer for this one? If you look back at the previous sentences, it will help you. Of course, I can't show all these things on the screen at the one time, but to make a negative sentence from that. So are we going to choose present simple? Are we going to choose present continuous? And so Josefa, you chose present simple, but this is, today is like now, it's not over. So we're talking about at the moment. So we need to choose present continuous. Okay, I'm going to give you the correct sentence, and then we can compare this with what a present simple sentence would look like. So the correct sentence is, she isn't wearing a red dress today. She isn't wearing. So it's present continuous. The person is she, so we know we need to use the correct form of verb to be, is, and then wear, ing. Negative, she isn't wearing a red dress today. So if we compare that with a present simple sentence, then it would be she doesn't, not don't, she doesn't wear a red dress to school every day. Yeah, she doesn't wear a red dress to school every day, for example, because then it's every day. But we're talking about today, so we want to use she isn't wearing. She isn't wearing. She doesn't wear a red dress today still as well. That's what I'm talking about here. It's because it's today, it is she isn't wearing. But if we said every day, that changes it. Then it would be she doesn't wear a red dress to school every day, for example. Yeah, but she isn't wearing a red dress today, because today is like now, it's at the moment. Yeah, we're talking about at the time of speaking. We're not talking about repeated every time. Okay, good. Let's have a look at the last sentence. Yes, Josefa, that's correct. So let's have a look at the last sentence. Okay, he's tired and verb want to go home now. Okay, so not a negative sentence this time, just a positive one. He's tired, the person is he. We've got the verb want. I want you to think, something I told you earlier about certain verbs which we can't use in one of these tenses. Okay, so bear that in mind and that will help you. He's tired and want to go home now. So how would you make that into the correct sentence here? Are we going to pick present simple? Are we going to pick present continuous? So we've got the time expression now, which normally helps us, but does it help us in this case? Or am I giving you a tricky one as the last sentence? So let's see what you've got. What do you think is the correct sentence here? They'll say wanted, yeah, but what wanted is the past. So we're not talking about that one today. And because of the first part of that sentence, we would change to he was tired and wanted to go home. And we couldn't say now because you're changing it to the past. He's tired and wanting to go home. So one thing I'll show you to remember, let me find it. These verbs aren't usually used in present continuous, like prefer, want. So even though we're talking about now in this sentence, because we're using want, which is one of these verbs here, What did I do? Which is one of these verbs here. That means we can't use present continuous. We have to use present simple in this case. Even though we say now, which is the whole meaning of present continuous, we have to use present simple in this case because of the verb that we're using, in this case, want. So that was a little bit of a tricky one I gave you at the end there. And it means that the correct sentence, yes, still a well done. He's tired and wants to go home now. He's tired and wants to go home. I'll show you on the screen. There we go. So he's tired and wants to go home now. So because we've got want, it has to be present simple. And because the person is he, it has to be wants. So he's tired and wants to go home now. Okay, good. So we had all of our example sentences. We had a lot today to look at. Some, we're still making some mistakes with these things, which is okay. I think the mistakes that we make often are about the general meaning of these tenses. So, really concentrate on, do you mean something repeated, like a habit, something that happens all of the time, something that happens always or often or usually? Then, in that case, it really has to be present simple. But if we're talking about something that's happening now, then, or at the moment, it has to be present continuous, okay? And then the grammar and the structure, you choose after that. That's why, to start with in the lesson, we looked at the meaning of these things and the timelines and all of those examples, because you have to decide on that first before you start thinking about how to construct the sentence, okay? So there's a lot of different ways you can practice this online. You get lots of examples with this. Once I finish this video, I'm going to put in the description some links to grammar exercises that you can do to help you practice these tenses, because even though these are things that we look at an elementary level of English, lots of people make mistakes with them as they go forward to intermediate and different things like that. And it's good to have the basics correct before you move on to those things. Okay, so, well, thank you for joining me this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening, depending where you are. For me, it's this morning. Please like this video if you haven't already. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And, follow me on Facebook. I also have a Learning English Facebook group, Learning English with Alex. And check out my website where there are blogs and different things. That's learnenglishwithalex.com. I'll put all of these details into the description of this video as well once we're finished. And that's us finished. So thank you very much. Thanks, Josefa. You're very welcome. It was nice speaking to you all virtually today, and thank you for contributing during the lesson. It was quite a long lesson today. It was longer than I expected it to be, but that's good. It means we had lots of things to talk about. Next week, as usual, there'll be 3 lessons coming. So Tuesday and Thursday, video lessons, and next Wednesday, there is another live lesson as well about pronunciation. So please come to that. You can find the details on my Facebook or on my website as well. Okay, so thanks for coming to the lesson today. Have a nice day, and I'll see you all soon. Take care.